Welcome to an episode of Quantum Quill Chronicles. Today I'm going to talk about, it's a cosmic horror book and it's weird. Full disclosure, I totally bought this book because, it had mediocre reviews, but it's based where I live and I thought that would be absolutely hilarious to read and hopefully pick out things about where I live. Anyway, it's called Bad Glass by Richard E Gropp. Don't mind all the extra stuff because I like to buy used books. It takes place here in Spokane, in Washington. The author is Washington native, lives on the west side of the state, so it's kind of funny he chose to pick something over here in Spokane. But considering a very large chunk of the Z Nation series was filmed here, it kind of sets up what the area looks like, right? So anyway. The whole thing is about, it starts off with this guy, Dean, who's like, I'm going to go Spokane. It's under quarantine by the government for some reason. People can't get in unless they sneak in. They can't get out. It's very strange. It's very strange. It's cosmic horror, if that tells you anything. So, Spokane's on lockdown. He manages to bribe some security guards to let him in. And he starts wandering around the city. And, I could pick out some places that the author was talking about, although unless he just looked at a map and picked out some cross streets and was like, yes, that's where government buildings are. Or if in the story the government buildings change, because some of, the streets I recognize, but some of the building placements is not where they actually are. But that's okay. It was still kind of fun. Especially as they're like, well, going along Sprague, and it's very questionable down there. Yes, it is very questionable going down Sprague. All of that is true. True in apparently a government lockdown. True in real life. Anyway, so Dean, he's a freshly graduated photographer trying to make his way as a photojournalist, blah, blah, blah. But he runs across this guy who ends up, stealing his shit, whatever, his bag, his camera, and everything. So he's all freaked out about that. And then he comes across this chick afterwards. She saves his gear and brings it back to him. Is like, hey, you probably shouldn't trust that dude. He's got problems. Who doesn't in a government lockdown facility? So there's this part in the book where Dean and Taylor, she's the one who rescues all his shit. They're going through this building, whatever, and he comes across this gap in the wall. It's very strange. So he's looking at this hole in the wall between one room and the next room in this old dilapidated building, whatever. And there's a crack in there, and he sticks his head through and he sees this glowingness. And he looks a little bit further into that crack, seeing what the glowing is. And there's a person's head sticking out of the wall, like they're morphed into the wall and is staring back up at him. So he starts freaking out. And then he sees these other shadows and things, and it gets closer, and it gets closer, and it's like this big black mass coming towards him. Is a ton of giant, freaky spiders, giant size ass spiders. And not just that, he's looking at this one that's crawling up. He's trying to bat them away. They're crawling up on him and everything. And this one has a human finger as one of its legs, just chilling. So clearly the spiders once upon a time were a human. Okay, so this book is a cross between Color Out of Space and Annihilation. There's weird body morphing, and there's a government quarantine and exploration, and it's some crazy shit. But anyway, so he sees these spiders all crawling up at him, and then Taylor comes in, saves the day, swats the spiders away because he was doing a piss poor job of it. He kind of just was he froze in fear, and then he started taking pictures of them crawling on him, not my first reaction that I'd have to giant oversized spiders. Oh, and one that was just massive. This is some giant Harry Potter level spider. It's not. But anyway, so, the time carries on. I really would have liked more of this book if it focused on the shit that was happening in the quarantine. But a lot of it more was just, he meets Taylor and all of a sudden he's in love with her. After a day. So anyway, she takes Dean back to her house where she has it's 6 or 7 other people. They're all living there. They're all just, they're people who refuse to leave the city. One chick is there because she refused to leave the city looking for her dog, which I totally understand. Another kid, he's like 17, he's stayed there because he's trying to find his parents. And some of the others are just like, well, not got shit else to do, so I might as well just stay here and see what happens. It's like all of this takes place in like a week and a half or 2 weeks, maybe. It's kind of crazy. And it's this period right at the end of fall where like we start to get a lot of snow here in the region. So they go out, him and one of the others go out in the snow. They're looking for the dog. And apparently at Riverfront Park, which is the big giant city park in the middle of downtown, there are these giant holes in the ground, like these cavernous holes. Whoever the hell dug them, nobody knows. And there's this pack of wild dogs, but you don't always see the wild dogs. You can only sometimes see the wild dogs. They kind of drift in and out of this dimension, I guess, is the best to say. It's a little weird. There's a lot of unexplained things in here. So him and one of the roommates go, and she's looking for her dog, and she's like, oh, it's going to be with a pack of wolf dogs. Doesn't make any sense. She goes in the tunnel after them, disappears. You don't see her again till very late in the book. One of the other people's goes in a hole in a wall, and never to be seen from again. Another one is maybe working for a government agency secretly. Taylor makes friends with the government goons that are stationed in the city, becomes really good friends with one of them, and he brings her alcohol, and they like upload stuff. There's no internet or anything. So he takes a little thumb drive with all their shit, and he goes back to the base and uploads it to the web for people in the outside world to see what's happening on the inside. Because as far as the outside world knows, there's a quarantine, people are disappearing, and that's essentially it. The mayor of Spokane goes on TV in the middle of a press conference, just disappears. All of a sudden, they're gone. No idea. So then the military goons are saying, you know, we staged all of it, don't worry, it's just, you know, misinformation, because they have no idea what's going on. The government's there, they're studying, they have physicists there, they have biologists there, doing 10 million different tests, and they have no idea what is going on, as much as they like to say that they have an idea of what's going on, but they don't. Carry on. A few days later, Dean is just continually falling head over heels for Taylor because none of it makes sense in this. You have no idea what's happening. Dean and two of the other roommates find a radio, which, again, there's no internet, there's no radio, there's no nothing happening. It's all completely locked down. And he finds a radio and starts hearing static and something on the other end. And the youngest kid there, the 17-year-old, says, I know that voice. There's a voice coming through, kind of scratchy, you know, but he said, that's my dad's voice. So now they're off to go look for his missing parents again. More on Taylor's that she decided to stay in Spokane because you later find out that her dad and mom were still here. But really, her dad's not here. He fell through the floor and morphed into the floor, so he's just like part of the upper torso sticking out, and he can't, you know, he can't hear, he can't speak, he's just a shell of a human. And Dean finds this out. Dean sneaks over to her parents' place and starts taking pictures and trying to be the photojournalist while also being like, hey, I'm here for you. Like he's madly in love with this Taylor chick, and we have no idea why. Out of the blue, completely out of the blue, to this person that he just met on this weird expedition where there's creatures and disappearing ghost dogs and people morphing into buildings and things. Like, it doesn't exactly make sense why he is so head over heels. I would say a good, at least half, probably 2/3 of this book is just his weird obsession with her and doing anything like fawning over her just because he's a sick, lovesick puppy. It's very strange. I would like to know more about what actually happens in this. Carry on. So the 17-year-old, they are tracking down, there's a few of them left, they're trying to track down his parents. Apparently his parents were physicists who were brought in by the government to try to figure out what was happening. So they end up going through these tunnels, and the tunnels lead them into a basement building where there was a lab that his parents supposedly were working at, and they were doing this experiment, 2 mirrors, and a laser bouncing back and forth between them. And they're trying to time how long it took the light to travel. Keep in mind, the speed of light, that is a constant in the universe. They discovered that over time, I don't know the exact timeline of when they started the experiment, how soon after everything hit the fan, but they discovered over time that the light was slowing down. How? How can a constant of nature slow down? Was there black holes that were it's the last 50 pages of the book that you start to find this out. There's 400 pages in the book. So his parents are gone again. Don't know where they went. Don't know if they're still alive, but there's their experiment doing the thing. And then one of the roommates who's actually working for this government organization pops up in the lab while a few of them are in there and says, "Oh no, your parents are dead. You saw their bodies." And the kid's like, "I didn't see their bodies. What the hell are you talking about?" He's, "No, you saw their bodies. You went to their funeral. You know exactly what's happening." And the kid, he's 17, and he's just like, "I don't know what you are talking about right now." And he's just having a complete meltdown, of course. And then the adult roommates from the house kick the other guy out. I don't know where he goes. Now here's where it gets really weird. They leave. Two of them, they leave, they go through these tunnels underground. They're looking for somebody. There's a bunch of things happening. It's very convoluted. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of gaps in this. Basically, two of them, the kid finds his parents again, but they're in like an alternate dimension, which doesn't really make sense. But it's not just an alternate dimension. It's like the exact same things happening in our dimension, but at a different timeline, like way further in the future. So Dean and Taylor leave. They go to the hospital downtown because the government was trying to get into there for some reason. You never exactly figure out why until after they go there, and they somehow, by being in that building, was like walking through a portal in time. Like a wormhole. I guess the building's a wormhole. I'm not sure if all of Spokane's a wormhole. So they're way further in time. I'm guessing it's years by the sound of it. It sounds like overgrowth completely on the buildings. The freeway through the city has decayed and fallen apart. There's downed planes, apparently. And they realize, wow, this is the end. The whole sky is covered in red light, which is strange. Kind of like what you'd see from Mars, where it's all red because of the atmosphere. It's very strange. And the government goons were trying to say, "Oh, this is all just a figment of your imagination. All of it's fake. You're hallucinating because of this giant mushroom in the ground." And they're like, "Pretty sure I'm not hallucinating this. Pretty sure I'm not hallucinating this." So Dean and Taylor, they're sitting there just kind of having like this existential crisis in a portal to another dimension that is the exact same place that they're standing in the hospital. And they're like, "Well, I guess this is our future. Yeah, I guess that's our future." They leave the portal back into the present time, and they just watch that plane that had been there. They watch it come crashing out of the sky, and they're just like, "Okay, I guess we carry on." And that's that. There's no answers about what is happening in this book. Like, okay, why is time going slow? Was there black holes popping up on Earth that it was causing these things to happen? Because it apparently starts to happen in other places across the world. You don't find answers to anything. Okay, the kid finds his parents. Now what? They just hug each other until they die in this government building with their experiment? What the hell was happening? Who are the ghost dogs? Why did the ghost dogs exist? Why was Dean in love with Taylor after just meeting her for a day? Why did most of the book focus around her and him and his weird, like, seriously, it was just an obsession. I wanted more of what was the weird sci-fi shit happening in this, but no. I'll give the author credit how he writes this book. It's very, very interesting. Each chapter is kind of split and starts with this, it's Dean's kind of log where it explains like a photograph that he took and what was happening at that time, what is happening on the outside world. Like, it's like little news snapshots which is pretty cool to know like what he's seen and how people in the outside world are seeing it. Because as far as everybody on the outside world, outside of Spokane, are concerned, they have no idea what's happening, and they can't tell if they can't tell if any of these pictures that are being released are real or not. They have no idea what's going on. There's like this whole manuscript at the very end of it that's saying all these different characters that you meet throughout the book, and it's like deceased, deceased. Are they actually deceased? Or are they just trapped in another time? We don't know. Missing, missing, missing. Are they actually missing? Or are they actually dead? Or are they trapped in this other world? Don't know. There wasn't exactly a satisfying ending. I'd say this would be the equivalent of like a Sci-Fi Channel B movie. Something like that. Or something from like maybe the 90s. Like one of those weird, the quintessential like odd, nonsensical 90s sci-fi movies. It was bizarre. I don't regret reading it, but there was a point about halfway through that I was like, I just want answers and I do not care about all these human relationships. Just don't. I'd say half of them were kind of annoying. I was really just freaking sick of Dean. I hated the main character. Sorry. I hated that guy. He was obnoxious. I'd give it a solid 6 out of 10. It was interesting for an unknown local cosmic horror book. If you want something that's weird and not like anything else that I have read, this might be the book for you. Thanks for listening to my rambling on Bad Glass by Richard E Gropp.